Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is Dr. Deborah Jenkins, your host for Black Talk Platform. Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Black Talk Platform. We are holding our usual show on Monday because I have a previous engagement for tomorrow. However, barring Tuesday, um, we will be going live at some point every day this week because we are on verdict watch in the Derek Chauvin case. Today, the prosecution and the defense both gave their closing arguments in the case against Derek Chauvin in the murder of Brother George Floyd. A little over an hour ago, the jury received the case and they are now deliberating. So there's much to talk about. There's much anticipation, and a whole lot to wonder about. I'll share while I wait for my guests to arrive. My guest tonight will be Tony Lindsay. He is the founder and host of the Community Town Hall. And hopefully, Pastor Anthony Davis of the Harvest Restoration Ministry will also be able to join us. But he did have a family issue that he was attending to, so he may or may not be able to join us. However, we're going to talk about this case tonight. To get us started, I want to share what occurred in my community in the Northeast Bronx yesterday. The Bronx District Attorney had reached out to many faith leaders throughout the city of the Bronx, that is, the borough of the Bronx, and asked us to come together to form and do some events throughout the Bronx as we await the verdict in the trial against Derek Chauvin. As she was meeting with some faith leaders, I was also contacted by an elected official to do the same, and therefore we joined forces and we came together and we had a great turnout in our community yesterday, including our United States Congressman Jamal Bowman and other elected officials, our councilman Kevin Riley for our area, our assemblyman Michael Benedetto, our former councilman Andy King. There were just so many, and clergy leaders from throughout the Bronx, and we were grateful to have them. We had a prayer walk for peace and unity that began in one part of our community and ended in the other part. We did this preemptively because, for me, I can only speak for myself, and that is who I represent always here in the Most High, of course. My interest is in young people's response to whatever the verdict may be, being one of cooler heads prevailing, but they need us. They need more seasoned people. They need more mature people who are interested in their safety, in their care, and are interested in making sure that they do not become victims of the criminal justice system because they are angry. There are other ways for us to respond to a verdict that may not be what we desire. And I believe it is our responsibility as adults, as leaders, whether clergy or community leaders, or simply people who care about young people. We have to stop this steady stream of blaming them for feeling as they do, and try to understand that their bodies are under assault just like ours are as older people, and they don't have the same mindset as many of us. I'm a Generation Xer. These young people, I don't even know where they register. They're not millennials. They might be Generation Z. I don't even know what that means. All I know is that they're not waiting for instructions from older people. They're not waiting for permission from us to do what whatever it is that they feel that they should do. But we have a responsibility to be there for them and to help guide them and to keep them out of trouble. We've kept ourselves, for the most part, out of trouble all these years, and we should do the same with them. I want to welcome everyone tonight to the show and thank you for being here. I see my sister, Juanita. I see Sister Desiree, and I'm grateful for you both being here. I'm going to invite Tony Lindsay on with me right now so that we can sort of get into this. Last week, he had desired to tell us a little bit more about the trial because he has been watching it and giving us as a community updates. And today, the culmination of that process has occurred. And he's here to give not only the facts of what he witnessed, but also his perspective as a Black man. So I'm going to invite Tony Lindsay, host and founder of the Community Town Hall, on to join me right now. Good evening. Hi, Tony. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here with me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You gotta
Absolutely.
excuse my background and all that and the distortions, but you know
I
how it
don't
goes.
really see any distortions. It looks like, look, it looks
My
like a
beard is
log
looking weird.
cabin. Your beard looks fine. I'm looking at the background because it looks like a log cabin, which I don't mind going away on a trip in the mountains somewhere. So we like your background. Thank you for joining us with that
Right.
background tonight.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I was sort of teeing up our discussion tonight, Tony. And I'm really going to allow you to pretty much lead and guide that discussion because I don't consider myself to be an expert in this trial at all because I intentionally did not watch it, but I saw you watching it very closely. You did many of us a favor by stepping in to watch it. And I know some of it was very difficult for you and many others who watched it. And that is why I didn't watch it. But I do want to glean from your expertise in having watched it. And then, of course, today was a very important day. And we're sort of on watch for the verdict being returned. So why don't you just jump in there wherever you like?
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I have been, following through, on watching the trial because and actually it's kind of interesting. You pointed out that you didn't want to watch it, right? A lot
Yeah.
of people that I've seen, a lot of my friends that I've spoken to, people on social media, well, Black people pretty
Mm-hmm.
much, you know, they don't want to watch the trial because it kind of it translates to the same old traumatization and PTSD that we get, and sometimes it's just too much, right?
Yeah.
It's just too much for us to take. So I
Yes.
can totally understand needing to step away for a second just to protect your own mental health
Yes.
because it seems like we're constantly inundated with imagery of us being, killed by police, this criminality. There's just so much Black trauma, right? There's just so much Black trauma. I call it like Black trauma porn. And,
Wow.
you see it, we're seeing it in the mainstream media. We see it in entertainment. And, it really does a number on the psyche.
It
But at the
does.
same time, while it's very traumatic to watch these things, we still have a duty to stay engaged. And let me tell you, it was painful for me. So me just tuning into the trial, while I didn't want to, like a lot of other people didn't, I still felt a sense of duty because we have to know what's going on. Call it reconnaissance, seeing how the enemy works.
Yeah.
But we have to understand that even if we don't want to, we still have to be in it. We got to stay in it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that was my reason for tuning in, even though I didn't want to. And honestly, I'm happy that I did. I
Okay.
learned a lot watching that trial. I mean, I've been putting up a lot of posts,
You
as
have.
things
Yeah.
have things that have been taking place. And a lot of people have been thanking me, like, yeah, I can't watch it. So Tony, thank you for posting this and that update. Yes. You know,
I'm one of those people who thank you. I'm one of those people who thank you, and I'm happy to see you too, Carl, join us. Carl on the other side has been out protesting since Dante Wright was murdered last week. And so both of
Okay.
you have done what many of us won't do. He's close to that area, of course, but Tony, I appreciate you taking a hit for the rest of us because it is very traumatizing. And so you, after sharing with us, are going to have to what is it?
Decompress.
Decompress. Yes, you're going to have
Yeah.
to decompress. But I appreciate that as well as many of your other friends. And so, you don't have to go over, what was it, 6 weeks? Has it been 5 or 6 weeks?
Well, has it? I thought it was 4 weeks. It's been a little over
I'm
4 weeks.
losing time. Was it March 8th or April? Yeah, it was March 8th, right?
Yeah, but we're still in April. It's about
That's
4.5, almost 5 weeks, maybe.
too many.
Yeah,
About 5 weeks.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they called like 45 witnesses in that
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of information, a whole lot of information. And I will say, though, that I'm very happy that I did tune in to watch the trial because I learned a lot. I think I forgot who I was talking about this to, or maybe I put up a video about it, but I learned so much just from like the scientific testimony
Mm-hmm.
about my body, the human body, and the diet and the certain conditions that we go through, and considering that Black people tend to have higher rates of, let's say, high blood pressure, heart disease, and cholesterol, diabetes, and all those sorts of things, there was a lot of testimony in that regard pertaining to that, and I really got a very deep education on like how our bodies are really like structured. And it's crazy, but like I changed my diet just
Really?
after listening to all of that testimony from very credible and passionate clinicians. Like, it was really, really eye-opening. But
I,
I'll go
I
ahead.
seem to remember you being particularly impressed with the pulmonologist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was actually impressed with a lot of them, and you know what, that's something I did want to speak to. Typically, in these cases where you see police violence against Black people in particular, you'll see the prosecution, you'll see they don't really fight as hard as they should.
Mm-hmm.
We always see them getting off, or if they get convicted of something, they get like very light sentences. So, we already approached this with a very serious degree of skepticism. But I will say, though, what I have seen from this prosecution team under Keith Ellison, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you something. That's probably the best, most thorough, and the strongest uh, uh, prosecution case I've ever seen presented in my life. So,
Wow.
I mean, I can't speak to people's intentions, but I'll tell you, they did a damn good job of convincing me that they were really trying to get a conviction.
I remember you saying that, and that's not something that we often feel with prosecutions. We don't often feel like they are really out to get a conviction because they work so closely with the cops often, all the
Right.
time.
Right. And it's pretty much kind of presents like a conflict of interest. And when we've looked at previous trials, like the George Zimmerman trial, where Angela Corey, she was the
Yes.
DA on that case. They did a really piss poor job of prosecuting that case. And even something, that most people might even consider, something that wasn't so much in the mainstream media, like I'm pretty sure some people heard of in Brooklyn, New York, 7 Asian nail technicians. They attacked a young lady and her grandmother, Christina Thomas, and her grandmother, Thelma Medley. I mean, it was like a viral video where there's like 7 Chinese people beating up on this young lady and her grandmother.
I remember it. I think I saw it the other day.
Yeah, that went to trial. But
Mm-hmm.
right here in Brooklyn under District Attorney Eric Gonzalez. And I was, I'm a very close friend of the family, and I was very much involved in that. And I can tell you that from what we saw, the DA, the prosecutor, they threw that case. Like, they made it so easy to get that case basically thrown out. So it's like, it's not even just in the case of police violence. It's just any anti-Black violence that is committed against us. It's always to some degree protected in the criminal justice system. And that's something that we really have to address.
I remember that case, and I remember I didn't know you at that time, but I knew that there were a lot of activists who were incredulous about it. I was, and just watching it, because the reality is, there are a lot of beauty supply places, and typically they are owned by Asian Americans,
Mhm.
and but the violence, and the lack of trust in that particular situation was just so ugly, was so horrible. Why do you think there might have been a desire by the prosecution not to get us to not believe our lying eyes, right? Just like in today's case, right?
Right. And they directly correlate. I mean, we saw that assault, that gang assault take place on video. Like, we saw everything from when they beat them with broomsticks to when they sprayed the grandmother in the eyes with the acetone. I mean, how much more plain can it get? Yet the DA threw the case. The ADA that was handling it, they threw the case. And their primary concern was, which is really offensive, was they continued to like they just continued to push the grandmother, Miss Medley, on trying to get her to sympathize with her attackers because they were illegal or undocumented immigrants. So the priority was protecting their immigration status over protecting the Black women who were assaulted and a grandmother who received probably permanent eye damage, retinal damage from that attack. So that shows you the level of protection and respect that they have for us as a community. So, and I think it's evident in the George Floyd case. Well, maybe not in that case, but this is why I say I see some type of array of hope, because I don't see that type of, abandonment in the way that they're prosecuting this case. Some people argue, well, no, they know there's no way out of this, so they better get this guy convicted. Right. So I don't know. It's just sad that we have to always have such an apprehensive approach to, people, people who are supposed to actually be fighting for us. The district attorney, they're supposed to be prosecuting a cop, but we know when it comes to cops, they're just not held to the same standard as everyone else.
Right. Yesterday in my community, I was saying this earlier before you came on, that we had a prayer for peace and unity ahead of, we're trying to take some proactive steps to try to my whole thing is I can't put anybody else's messaging out there. Mine is to keep young people, Black and Latino kids, from getting in a touch from the criminal justice system. That's my tunnel vision. Whatever I can do to keep them from getting involved with the criminal justice system, that's why I'm here. It is for law enforcement to protect property. That's not my place. But interestingly, our district attorney, you're familiar with her, Darcel Clark. She's the first African American and first female district attorney in the state, I believe. In the state, yeah. But she, as a prosecutor, watching the trial with her prosecutorial, her legal lens on, she said she feels like there will be a conviction. But like you said, she's not positive. And that speaks to the legal system, the justice system nationwide. It just does. If you have a leading prosecutor who herself is unsure, not believing that her counterparts in Minneapolis have done a great job, but not believing totally that justice is going to prevail in this murder case against this white officer who murdered on television, on camera, George Floyd. That's a huge problem.
Right. I mean, I believe that there's going to be a conviction. Yeah. Actually, I think so. I mean, I'm leaning towards yes.
Okay.
Right. But there's also the concern that the sentence may not match what we're expecting or what
Yeah.
we know is just.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the equivocation that we always face when we're dealing with this type of stuff. Because let's take a look at Peter Lang when he killed Akai Gurley in the
Right.
stairway over in Pink Houses in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was convicted, but he didn't serve 1 day in jail.
Why is that?
Well, that was there was a recommendation from the district attorney. I think it was Ken Thompson at the time.
The one who
So
passed away.
yeah, the one who passed away. So, you know, and my comments might offend some people who were fans of, Ken Thompson and all of that, but I call it like how I see it, man. There's a certain loyalty, camaraderie that district attorneys have with police officers.
Yeah.
And that's just how this is how these situations play out. And I have multiple concerns, even with the jury. I have concerns with the jury. That jury is comprised mostly of white people,
Yep.
right? White
Yep.
women.
Yep.
And I think there's like 3 white men. I'm not sure. It might be 3 or 4 white men.
See, I thought it was more white men, but I think you're correct, actually.
Right.
And,
Now,
and that actually isn't great.
say it again.
That's not great when
No,
there are
that's
more
not
white
great.
women. No.
And it's sad that we have to put on our potential racist lens, like in addition to just the evidence, the facts of the case. Because if this were a just criminal justice system, if this was a fair system, objective and unbiased,
right,
I would be 100% confident that guy was going to be convicted on all charges, plain and simple.
Right.
But the fact that the victim was a black man, a large black man, who they keep throwing his drug use history out there, which really isn't relevant to what we saw. It's not relevant. Right. I'm not so confident that we're gonna get a fair verdict. Right. There are so many openings. And I wanted to say something too. Like, let's just play the odds. Let's just play the stats, right? Mm-hmm. You've participated in the comment section of various posts, right? Mm-hmm. Black man gets murdered, black woman gets killed, someone brutalized. Just by our basic observation on social media, how often do you see droves of white people in the comment section always blaming the black victim for their own death?
My goodness.
We see it all the time, right?
All the time.
What percentage of the time would you, let's say, what percentage of people would you say, white participants in some of these posts? In some cases, you might see half of them. Some cases, you might see 20%, 30%. But let's go low. Let's say 15%, right? So now I apply that to the jury. You got all those white people in that jury. All it takes is one.
That's right.
All it takes is one person who views this trial through the same lens that we continue to see by so many white people who are emboldened to spew their racism on social media.
Yeah.
But now these people, they have the cover of a sequestered jury. They're they can, no one's seen their face. They can let all that racism out. I mean, I don't doubt that there may have been several white people on that jury who were hoping that the defense attorney would give them a really good excuse to get an acquittal. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
I do. And I don't know. There's so much here to unpack, because I think we're trying to peel an onion about the injustice system under which we as Black people have always lived in this nation. And it's not enough for people to walk away from our conversation. And so, Tony, you can just go in if you need to, but I do want to give the audience the benefit of us explaining some things. So if Tony is right, and anyone can drop in the comments the makeup of the jury. Carl, if you're still here, you're real good about all of those statistics and things.
Right.
If there are more white women than white men, that becomes a larger problem for the prosecution. And I'm going to tell you why. For those of you who've not yet watched and I just take theater, movies and stuff, because people identify and sort of get greater insight when they look at fiction. But fiction imitates reality often. There's a new show called Them on
Oh Lord.
Amazon.
Yeah, I've been watching it.
Yeah, my husband and I started watching it. We had to stop at episode 3, but we're going to go back and finish it up. But here's the thing: the driving force for the hatred towards this family is the white wife, is the white woman, and that's the case in many of the atrocities having been visited on Black men, especially, but Black people in this country. The white women, they don't get this, they don't get the credit for what they've done, to cause these their men to come out and go so hard against us. And so if that is the case, that potentially could be worse, because they've always been presented as prima donnas to be protected at all costs, while we were the ones, our ancestors had to put our children down to nurse their children.
Mm-hmm.
Our grandmothers, our ancestors, they had to watch their husbands be beaten, be raped, because of lies told on them by
Right.
white women.
Yeah.
So this is not just 400 years ago, people. This is
Still
come
happening today.
forward. Exactly. It is 2021. And just like I can refer and Tony can refer to our ancestors, guess what? They can too, because they're still here.
Right.
They're the same people. And so that is a concern that I have, in terms of the jury, on the constitution of the jury, how it's configured. And it's problematic. Can I go back, since you've mentioned 2 separate cases involving prosecutions here in New York, if you want?
Yeah.
And I don't think you were saying anything negative about Ken Thompson. I think you were just speaking truth about how the prosecution and police, law enforcement relationship is. That
Right.
they really do, just in fairness to the prosecutors, right? They have to rely on good police work to get any convictions, whether they are convictions, frivolous convictions, things that should never have come to a court, or whether or not there are, legitimate crimes that have been committed. And then they are in a position where, when they're presented with cases like the Peter Liang case, a Kai Gurley case, they are presented with an opportunity, I would say, Tony, to step up and remember why they became lawyers in the first place. But far too often, as in that case,
Right.
they fail the community. They fail the families of the victims.
Right.
You can go on from there.
Right. It's a serious conflict of interest, period. I mean, look, the police should not be the police shouldn't be investigating themselves. Police shouldn't be prosecuting police. I just think it's ridiculous. It's just, that's like basically, I assaulted you, and then I say, okay, well, let me check my conscience and decide if what I did to you was wrong. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't go that way. But these are the obstacles that we face in a biased system. Now, the primary problem that we have is we have a very racist and violent culture in police departments all across this country.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as qualified immunity exists, we're never going to really see a substantial change in the way that policing is conducted in this country. So, I think we have a huge responsibility, and we should not look at even a guilty verdict right now. If we get, you get a guilty verdict, that's great, but it's not something that's going to make me feel, oh yes, oh, like, that's not justice for me. Justice is proactive. Justice is getting rid of qualified immunity.
Let's talk about qualified immunity for a second, if you don't mind, because we brought it up last week. Do you mind us talking about that?
Yeah, that's fine.
For a little bit, because I don't, we have a variety of people watching, and they may not know what it is for us, as well as we know. But I introduced to you and Pastor Davis last week that if President Biden really wants to do something with his power, whether by executive order or if he actually has the power to direct the Department of Justice to dictate to the local law enforcement to overturn qualified immunity. That to me, because of the great threat against our Black bodies every day, from babies until the oldest one of us, that's the single most important thing that Joseph Biden could do for Black America. What do you think, Tony? They
It's
get to
one,
hide behind it.
yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest things, but I don't really have confidence that he'll do that because this system runs, it thrives based on qualified immunity.
Yeah.
It That's how they continue to maintain, a police state when it comes to Black people. That's how they continue to maintain the prison industrial complex,
Yep.
and even listen, this is how you pay the salaries of all these cops out there, all the judges, all the prosecutors. Like it's a
It's a
loaded
whole industry.
system, you know.
Yeah.
It's a profitable system. And unfortunately, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, in a capitalistic system like this, somebody's going to have to be on the bottom, right?
Right.
And we know in the United States that there's also a caste system in which, Black men particularly, we're the bottom. Like it's almost like it's necessary that we remain in this position in order to continue feeding the engine. You
You're
know,
right. You're absolutely right. And let me, for by definition's sake, for those of you who don't know, I'm just going
or
to read.
qualified immunity.
Yeah, because and I'm going to give big ups to, I think she's an assembly person or she might be a state senator, Alexandria Biaggi. She has introduced a very provocative bill in the
Mhm.
New York State Senate to at the passed on to New Yorkers any longer. The NYPD spends so much money with bad cops. I applaud her, and if there was any way for it to come to the floor, I don't know where it is right now, but I do applaud her for at least introducing such a bill because that'll make them think. You hit them in their pockets instead of the New Yorkers always. That'll make them think twice before they
Yeah,
harm us.
but you do know that people have been introducing such bills for a long time already, and how much it boils down to how much support will she get for that? And
Yeah,
this is,
she's
you know,
not.
and not to sound defeatist, but we got to face the reality of this system, and how it operates. So you, I, I I I don't know how
Well,
confident I am in that, but
but
qualified immunity is basic, like it protects individuals for, you know, from civil, like consequences. And,
right.
and basically, we as the taxpayers, we wind up paying for it. So every time a cop kills somebody and there's a settlement going to the family, we're paying for it. There's no real punishment for the officer. Nobody's losing money behind this. Nobody's losing their pension or getting sued and judgments against them where, their life is affected. They're not losing money. As it is right now, killing Black people is a very profitable business in this country.
Absolutely. It is.
It's
And
profitable.
and
So,
until I'm sorry,
so,
go on, Tony.
right. I'm sorry. I'm just saying it. Someone asked me the other day, when do you think they're going to stop killing us? And I said, when it starts getting too expensive. That's basically what it is.
But you know what? Guess what that expense is? When their children, when their young people, when their husbands, when their sons, when their uncles, when their dads start getting killed. White, I mean white, not anybody else but white people. Because in as much as this is an ugly capitalistic society, and when I say ugly, first of all, for those of you who love capitalism and you're Black or any other minority, think twice because they're only going to allow you to amass so much wealth. And those who are able to amass wealth, there's a very small number. But in regards to it stopping, yeah, it'll only stop when they start to share the wealth. What did we see just a couple of days or the day after Dante Wright was killed by what's her name? Kim, what's her last name? Kim
Potter.
Potter.
Yeah.
Um, another a man who was being asked to what was he? He was 61-year-old white man. Um, he gets in the car and almost runs over a cop. Cop standing behind his truck with with a, I think, his long arm, and this man is able to almost kill a cop.
Yeah, he's handled with care.
Handled with care and alive.
Mm-hmm.
Never beaten down. Never shot.
But that's why I actually kind of like I have a nuanced view. Like I know like Chris Cuomo went on CNN and was like, it's not going to change until your kids start getting killed. Nah, you know why? Here's why I don't 100% agree with that. Actually, I largely don't agree with that, because as long as there are available Black men, women, and children to continue to violate, brutalize, and kill, you're not going to see this type of behavior to the level that we're seeing it in the Black community, right? We have to also remember white people get killed by cops more than Black people, but that's basically by the sheer numbers, because white people outnumber Black people in this country. So I don't want to discount the fact that white people are also victims of police violence. And in fact, I think that's why you see more white people speaking up about it, because they're starting to see that they're not 100% exempt. They're still in a better position as a community as it pertains to these interactions with police. So that's why I say that you'll see the real change when it becomes too expensive monetarily, meaning you do something, you violate us, you're going to have to pay. You lose your pension, you lose your job, right. You cannot be rehired. Right. There's a judgment against you. Any future wealth that you can create, you got to pay that Black family first. See, that's how this works in a capitalistic system. It's all about the money. And trust me, they care about money more than they care about color. That's one thing that people have to understand, because and the danger is in this system. You see, this racist system, this crony capitalist, this greedy capitalistic system, racism is used as the engine.
Black family first.
To keep it moving. Racism is used as the engine to keep it moving. And sooner or later, the same people who find themselves in these quote unquote privileged positions, it's going to get to a point where it's too late. And they're going to see, just like how people were seeing under Donald Trump, that, well, to Donald Trump, I don't want to use this word, everybody's an N-word as long as you make less than 200 million or whatever. Yeah. So I just think it's very much about class. It is a lot about race, but race is the vehicle that is being used to oppress people based on class, and people need to find out before it's too late.
Okay, well, so Tony and I disagree, because I do agree with Chris Cuomo that, and I mean, I'm not going to prop him up now. I'm not propping up Chris Cuomo, but I agree in that once white people's children, young people, their lineage, their heritage starts to get killed by law enforcement, by and large, because they're just there. I mean, there are probably situations where a white young man might be involved in some group where the Blacks are advanced against and not him or her. It is race that drives this. And I do agree with you, though, Tony, that economically, if that were removed, that's why I say if President Biden were to mandate, if that is within his power, I don't know, but I do believe he has some powers over the certain powers that he can use over the Department of Justice. I mean, look, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, I'm talking about the more progressive senators, right? And even President Obama and even Biden now, we want to tax the rich. We want to tax the rich. I don't have any problem with them taxing the rich. But if you can do that to get more money into the hands of American people, to distribute the wealth, why can't you make these rogue cops pay for the crimes that they have committed against the very people they were supposed to be protecting. Qualified immunity has to be taken off the table. They can no longer be allowed to hide behind that. And it does creep into the trials for these officers, does it not? The fact that they can hide behind it because they can say, I was afraid. I've never seen so many cowards, so many people so afraid for their lives when they're the ones who have the weapons.
Yes, but I just got to just jump back just a second. I don't want you to, when I said that, as far as when they start losing their kids, when white people start losing their kids, things won't change. Yeah, I think that things would change a lot. However, I don't believe that white people are going to be losing their kids at the rate that we do, because that's just not the way that this system is set up. So if we sit back and we wait for that to happen, it ain't never going to happen.
Oh, I agree with you. Totally.
Right. So my thing is, it's like, until that, it ain't going to happen. So what else is there? What else is there? It's their pockets. It's the money to me. Or it's, you know what it is? It's consequences for the people who dole out the violence. That's probably a better way to say it. So if we're saying, when our white fellow citizens are experiencing what we're experiencing, that's going to somehow change the racist system. No. When police officer, Minister Farrakhan said it best. He said, as long as they could come and they could shoot our children, kill us, murder us, and then get in the car and go to Burger King or make and you know what I'm saying, and make it home to their family, then it's going to continue. I'm paraphrasing. So whether they start getting it, what they given, or they start losing their pensions or money, there has to be consequences for the person who is committing the offense. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the lens through which I'm speaking. If you want like real, progress, like right now, there got to be consequences, because as long as you can kill people and violate their civil and human rights with impunity, there's no incentive for you to stop.
Absolutely not. I want to sort of get some of the comments in, and then I then want to talk about leaders and their impact on the community based on the positions they take, if that's okay with you. So let me run through a few of these comments that I see. Welcome, everyone. We thank you for being here with us tonight. Dr. Dawn Sneal says, I think she was, I don't know what she was agreeing with, but she said the prosecution was on the money, something that you said. She wasn't able to watch the entire trial either. It was just too much, and she said she did notice that the prosecution did a good job, like you're saying.
Yeah, especially Attorney Blackwell, the black guy. That guy.
Okay, I didn't know which one it was. He was really good.
He's outstanding. I'm not sure if he's a prosecutor or if he's just someone that I guess
that they brought in
assisting. Right. But that man is an excellent trial attorney. Excellent.
Well, you know what? For the very small portion that I saw him on, I think it was Friday.
Yeah.
When they brought back their expert witness to
Tobin, Dr. Tobin.
To rebut. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the defense was waiting for him to slip up so that he can request that a mistrial be declared if he introduced the language about
the carbon monoxide.
The carbon monoxide nonsense.
Right.
And he took his time and he got it out there. It was like, if you're a baseball fan, it's like you're in the 7th inning and you're just really wanting your team to get a couple of runs in there so we can move this game on to the 9th inning. And I think he took his time and he did a great job with that. So to hear you say that he did an excellent job today also is hopeful. It's hopeful if he was convincing to the jury.
Well, listen, I'm pretty good at body language, at just listening to the content of everything they were saying. And I'm a skeptic anyway, like, especially when it comes to the system, anything pertaining to this system, criminal justice system. But I do believe, based on what I saw, that the prosecution is going hard to try to get a conviction. Like they're pulling out all the stops. They're not playing any games. And that makes me feel a little bit better. However, I do feel that the judge in this case is a little biased. And that concerns me a little bit because I saw some legitimate objections from the prosecution, and I saw no reason for him to overrule them. But you know, he's a judge, right? But then I watched this guy sustain ridiculous objections that the defense like raises. So, and usually when I see this happens, it's while Blackwell is either questioning witnesses or he's giving his, you know, like when he was giving his closing arguments. It's like I don't know, you know, when you get that feeling, I'm like, he seems to be going a little extra hard on the black attorney. The black attorney is really good. Like Blackwell, he's really good. So, and I felt like the judge was leaving a lot of loopholes, a lot of openings for the defense. You know, actually, even to try to get a mistrial or even giving them pretty much decent grounds for appeal.
He's helping to set it up. Let me get through a couple more because I'd love to talk about him scolding Congresswoman Maxine Waters earlier today. Dawn also pointed to the Botham Jean case, and she said it was a farce on the side of the prosecution. Juanita said it's always been the case with white women in slavery and post-slavery. These are the women who accuse black men falsely of rape, and men have been lynched, tarred and feathered based on lies that they've told historically. True. She said she also stopped watching the trial, but the prosecution and most what was that?
And most of the witnesses in the case told the truth as not to become targets themselves. I pray it will work out in favor of the George Floyd family and our black men, period. Yeah.
You know what? Let me stop there on that because we don't want to forget about the family, right? The family, every day that they had to sit through witnesses, every day that they had to see video, every day that they had to hear people like us or people on the mainstream media dissect the trial, is re-traumatizing
and impugn the character
of their loved one,
George Floyd. Yeah, like that. I thought it was disgusting to me. You know,
I don't care if he was cracked out. I don't care if he was smoking pot in front of them. I don't care what he was doing. As long I did not see anything in his behavior towards this beast, Derek Chauvin, that required that he be treated the way he was treated. You know, and so a lot of people have problems.
Yeah, well, you know, because there's so much overwhelming evidence, that's why you'll see the defense, they resort to a lot of dog whistling, a lot of gaslighting, you know, because that's pretty much what you do when the evidence of racism and anti-black violence is just so well put out there. The only thing you can resort to, well, it must have been the black guy's fault for some reason. I mean, I heard references to superhuman strength. You know, I've heard phrases like impervious to pain. And you know, this is the type of language that they use when they deal with black men, as if we're not human. We're some type of wild animals that you have to take extreme measures with in order to keep us at bay. And that's the mindset that they train police officers with. And you want to know why? And this is another thing. People talk about training. First of all, I don't think training is the issue here. You know why? Because I think most police officers are properly trained. You know why? Because I see them do very good work when they're dealing with white people. I see them handle white women in mental crisis, in people in crisis, white people in crisis. I see them handled with the utmost care. just like the old guy you said that was in the car and he crashed into the cops and
Yeah.
he pulled off with a cop dangling from the window, yet
Can't
he's
make it up.
alive. So don't tell me that these cops don't know how that there's bad training and they panic. No. They treat black people specifically with a different standard than they treat white people. Let's acknowledge that. And when we acknowledge that, then we're going to understand that this is not a training issue. This is, to me, it's a devil issue. So you need to get these people out. Listen, I see people saying abolish the police, as opposed to defund. I know people say, oh, defund sounds like abolish. But you know what? In my opinion, I believe that the police, the system of policing in this country that exists today needs to be abolished. I say that it needs to be abolished and it needs to be replaced. Yeah. I'm not saying we don't need law enforcement. It needs to be replaced. And we need to also remember how law enforcement began in this country.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought that up. Our people, the Bible says that God says my people perish for lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Is it that we're so traumatized from this ongoing trauma of living here that we as Black people have forgotten what the system, how the system came about? I mean, why don't we care about our history? Why are we the first ones to move on from our own trauma? Why? It's one thing, Tony.
It's recurring trauma, though.
It's a recurring everyday trauma. I was speaking to a friend of mine last week. She's a psychologist, right? And I told her that I'm working on a couple of white papers about the psychological trauma that we are all experiencing as a result of this pandemic, but specifically our young people, right? And do you know what she said? She said to me, get this. The trauma that you're seeing acted out doesn't have to do with the pandemic. It's all of the other stuff that was already occurring in our lives. And I was like, wow, that's so profound, because we think that people going out and doing crazy stuff is because they were cooped up for a year. It's not that at all. She said, we haven't even gotten to the pandemic's effect on our psyche, on our emotions, on our mental health. And so why then, if that's the case, why do we allow people as Black people? I'm just asking us, because I was sharing with Tony earlier that I'm not myself tonight because of something that occurred yesterday. And I'm wondering, why do we allow people to move us past the pain that we are currently in? We are sitting in a boiling pot of water in this nation. We feel the pain. Our skin is dripping off our bones, right? Why are we acting like it's okay, man, that you did this to us, that you put us in this boiling hot water? Why are we okay with that? Please tell me, enlighten me.
Because we're comfortable. We've learned to become comfortable with the delusions, with the illusion of things not being what they truly are, because we view things through a lens of not being able to change, because that's the only way you can look at it. It's like so many of us were so used to this and we don't see a way out that we've just decided to adapt and just figure out a way of making our situation just a tad more comfortable. We're in a boiling pot, so we're just trying to, maybe position ourselves, move around so it don't burn this side so much and that side so much, as opposed to climbing out of it. And that starts with the way to climb out of this is it starts with education. We have to understand where we came from, how we got here to where we are today. And as we're talking about the George Floyd trial, I think it would behoove us to do research into how policing in this country started. Look up patty rollers. You can look it up either as patty rollers. Sometimes they spell it different, or patty rollers, or slave patrol. People have to
Slave
understand
patrols.
that, policing in this country was not set up as protection and serving. No, it was set up as a means to round up freed
Freed
slaves.
slaves. Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
Where they would, I mean, literally the laws that they usually use to kind of entrap us and harass us with today were created back then, like loitering.
Right.
You couldn't have groups of like more than 3 or 4 black people standing talking together, or they would arrest you. They would walk up to you and they would demand to see your freedom papers. You see how many cops walk up to you randomly and demand to see your ID? Think about it, people.
Yeah.
Think about it. They would arrest you for things as simple as spitting. Or you're walking, you might spit in a corner or something. So there, police in this country were set up as a means to round up and utilize black people for the purposes. I mean, for economic purposes. Right. That's all it is. That we were viewed as property. Right. Why do you think jails are there? I mean, it's free labor. We were free labor before jails. Yeah. And once we were freed, so-called freed, they needed a way to continue to keep that machine running. Then here you go. Fast forward to today, the prison industrial complex, which provides massive free labor. So
massive.
People have to understand that.
And I wish that we had like hours and hours to sit with people. But I think that, like you were saying, people are just in that boiling hot water, trying to move about, wriggle around, just to find a little comfort. And that comfort becomes a false sense of acceptance by the very people who are doing a George Floyd harm, doing a Dante Wright harm, doing all of these names that we can go on and on and on about. And we're just blessed that ours have not yet been added, right? Thinking that we are special in some way to them. Let me ask you something about leadership, because I have a real problem. There's like Minister Farrakhan. Look, I don't know why people distance themselves from him, because he tells the truth.
That's why.
That is why, right? That is, yeah. But there are some people who, like him, will never get the kind of support, because he says a lot of provocative things. And so it's easier to look at people. There's a scripture that I love to quote, but I can't really think of it right now. I know it's in Isaiah, where the people basically say, don't tell us no truth. Tell us lies. They actually say, tell us lies, prophet. Tell us lies. And I worry about faith communities where people who lead are more concerned with soothing the sensitivities of the very people who harm the community in which they have been called to serve. I don't care what the faith is. I'm saying whenever a faith leader is more concerned with making those who harm the very people who fill their pews, who feel whatever their faith is,
more comfortable, making them
more comfortable. What gives? I don't understand. I think that's very dangerous. And then people wonder why folks aren't flocking to faith. You weren't you talking last week about none? Was that you talking about none? The new category? That might have been Pastor Davis.
No, it might have been Pastor Davis.
The new category, when asked on these on applications, what's your religion? The fastest growing category for Blacks and other minorities is none.
Yes.
And we are still asking this question. Why? Because young people, in the streets, they say game recognizes game, right?
Yep.
Young people have been sitting back like this, watching older people harm one another, first of all, in the church, in the synagogue, in the mosque. They've watched. And so what they're seeing is a lack of authenticity. And yet you want us to join you? You want us to follow you? What gives? Why do we do that? Why? If nobody's becoming a millionaire, billionaire, why are you risking the safety and the faith, the spirits of the people. Why?
Well, from what I see, it's about access. I mean, even if you're not going to be a millionaire, billionaire, whatever, you still have a certain status, you know. Even as listen, I'm the son of a preacher, of a pastor, a bishop.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the church,
Mm-hmm.
and my father's always been a modest, very humble man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has a very successful church, but you're not going to see my father driving no Bentley and and doing all this, that, and the other. But I think, for some reason, and I'm just speaking in general, the Black church has become like a, what's the word? Oh God, like it's become a novelty. Like it's very, I don't want to sound like, disrespectful, but it's become this thing, this big thing that is not as centered in the true teachings of the Bible as historically what many of us have seen. And I see a lot of people who call themselves ministers prioritize the secular world over actual, the scripture that they teach. And that's what I observe. I mean, I'm not saying it goes for everyone, but I think young people, like even me when I was growing, I think young people get turned off from the church because they see a lot of hypocrisy in there. They see a lot of self-serving behavior. They see a lot of things that's going on in the church, that's going on in the world, but everybody's justifying it, their bad behavior, in the name of the Lord. And I just think we're dealing with a generation, like you said, game sees game,
Yeah.
recognized game.
Yep.
So the church is losing, they're hemorrhaging people that should be part of the church. I mean, back in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, the church played a very heavy part in community development. You know what I'm saying? They were very heavy, like they did the real work in the community. I'm talking about even as far as investing in the community.
Oh, yeah.
But today, I mean, we see big churches and everybody got the nice cars and this and that, but what are we really seeing in the community? Some of the most successful churches are in the poorest communities, and nothing's changing in those communities.
Nothing. And it's very, for me, it's painful to watch. I think I'm similar to your dad in that I'm not I'm out in public because I have a mantle of social justice to fight,
That's right.
And so that's why I'm out there. But trust, I'm not driving a Benz. I don't fleece the flock. They can tell you, we don't. I've never had a pastor's anniversary. And I'm not. I understand the origins of why they did that, right?
Right.
I understand all of that. We don't have Women's Day because I was a budget director, so I understand budgets don't have to be built off the back of the people.
Right. But there's nothing wrong with appreciation.
It's nothing wrong with appreciation, but I'm talking about, don't give me and my husband $100. I've just never done that, and we've been doing this for 16 years. I've never done it. That's me, and I'm not criticizing those who have pastoral anniversaries because I understand the origins of it.
Right.
But a budget for a church, like any other business, is not supposed to be built off of your offerings in that regard. You can do things that benefit the community. You really can, and you can build your budget around that. But that being said, a lot of people don't know that, and that's why we have, like, for the Women's Day, your yearly budget is $20,000, whatever. It just depends on the size of the church, but it takes away from any worship to the Lord when your focus is on fundraising, right? When your focus is on raising money. I dropped here in the banner a book that I believe every person who is Black and has any relationship to transatlantic slavery, whether it be through the islands, any of the islands, or the United States, you all really need to purchase and read several times Dr. Joy DeGrew's book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. You really need to. And if you have one Black person in your congregation or whatever, you need to purchase this book. Otherwise, you're not even trying to minister to them. you're not trying. I said it. I meant it. You're not trying to minister to them because you don't understand what we as Black people go through. Um, and so I'll leave that there for anybody who on the replay wants to see. The name of the book is Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, Dr. Joy DeGruy. She is fabulous. You can follow her on Facebook. She gives classes. But this book, you can find her on YouTube. She has some wonderful videos. If you care about the Black community, you need to purchase this book and stop assuming that because you see Black people killing Black people, that we're just so horrible. And I don't care who you are.
I hate that.
White people kill each other. But guess what? They romanticize them killing each other by putting them on TV and having us help solve the crimes. America's Most Wanted, Forensic Files, Disappeared. I can name them all because I watch them all. 98% of them are white people, Asian people. And when you said tonight that perhaps they wanted to protect their illegal status, their immigration status, the workers, who knew that they would even be so bold? But they're not so bold as to beat the people who have them living like 12 people to a small one-bedroom apartment and make them work from sun up to sundown or beyond actually, because my Chinese delivery man, he told us the whole story of how they have to work, you know. So let's not just talk about what Black people do to Black people. Every group does to each other. You know why? Because we live in community with one another. Well, you're not going to just go up into another community and start harming people. These things are not to be taken lightly and not to be spoken of frivolously. And I believe that there's a time when we need to stay on code. Right now, we're talking about what is going to be the result. What actions are we going to take, and how are we going to help protect our young people after this verdict? Give me the code and I can stay on it. And I said this yesterday. It's so easy to stay on code. Why do people, Tony, and we've talked a lot about that on your show, why do people get off code at the drop of a dime?
Low self-esteem, I would think. I mean,
really?
We have low self-esteem as a people. So we view ourselves through the lens that has been provided to us by this white supremacist doctrine that we've been living under for hundreds of years. So, you know, when you like one example of that is the term Black on Black crime. You don't hear white on white crime. You don't hear Asian on Asian crime. You don't hear that type of terminology. But, you know, what you do whenever you use that term Black on Black crime, which I hate to hear from other Black people, you're assigning criminality to race. You're assigning criminality to something innate within us.
Wow.
But no one is talking about the conditions that lead to crime in certain communities. Because if there was such a thing as Black on Black crime, tell me about the crime rates in rich Black neighborhoods or rich middle class Black neighborhoods. Crime is an economic problem.
It is.
Crime is an education problem. When you deny people access to wealth and education, that's when you will see elevated levels of crime. When you relegate people to certain conditions and redline them into certain areas that do not have the resources that you will find in other more prominent areas, you're going to see elevated levels of crime. You know where else you see a lot of crime? In poor white neighborhoods.
Yes.
You know where else you see a lot of crime? Poor Asian neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But you don't see anyone talking about Asian on Asian crime. So I've heard the most intelligent, articulate people spew this Black on Black crime argument while ignoring the poverty and the certain conditions that lead to it. No one wants to talk about eradicating those conditions because what are we afraid of? I mean, what are we afraid of? Are we afraid of the great reveal that Black folks ain't the wild beast that y'all been making us out to be, and that we're not the real devils in this society? Let's just talk straight facts, because there's been a long campaign in this country to demonize Black people, particularly Black men, and reduce us to nothing but our sexual organs and violent, so-called violent nature. I
Yeah.
mean, come on, there's been a campaign, eugenics, all of this. I mean, come on. There's been so much effort to fight against the success of black people, black liberation. Why is that? Why are there forces that are fighting against black liberation? There must be a reason for that. So people got to get up out of this condition of ignorance that we're in. We're ignorant. And I do have a message for the people in my community that always want to default to, like, whenever we see these instances, like where a police officer will kill an unarmed black person. I hate the whole term unarmed black person too. You know why? Because it almost assumes that they're would be armed anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But every time they murder black people, I'm tired of the black people who never got nothing to say until a black person gets murdered and violated. Then you want to jump in with well, what about black on black crime? What about Chicago? Man, listen, man, if you don't go sit down somewhere with your white supremacist talking points, see, that's what angers me with our people. So I just say, let's just start with some education. And I would suggest start by educating our young people, because unfortunately, some of us in my age group, they're lost forever.
You know, I think that's probably why I'm feeling like this heaviness about what we're talking about right now, because I agree with you to a certain degree that many are lost, but they have authority and influence over our young people. And that's the scary part, because if they can fill the heads of our young people with this white supremacy crap, where's the hope? Where's the hope that there will be a next generation that wants to fight their way out of this? And I don't mean fight with their hands necessarily, but mentally fight all of the insults, all of the like you said, the dog whistles that make us seem like we're either we have some type of
but we see hope. There is hope.
I mean, show it to me. Show it to me.
I mean, we see it in our young people today. I mean, we see it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I think, you know, we as, like, let's say Gen X's or some of the boomers who are older than us, I think sometimes we kind of get locked into looking at things through our lens or what we've previously experienced. But if we step back and we really look at what's going on today, we will see that this generation is, I mean, they're insightful, they're bright, they're intelligent, they're brave, I mean, I'm actually encouraged by this younger generation. I just think we need to double down and support them and offer them guidance where needed. But I'm really not discouraged. And maybe because, you know, I have a 13-year-old. Well, I have kids, you know, I got a 13-year-old, you know, I got a 26-year-old, I have a 20-year-old. So I got kids, you know, all different ages. And it's not just what I observe in them, it's what I observe in their circles, what I observe just by watching them and the things that they even participate in on social media. I don't know. I feel encouraged. No, I actually think that our generation, I think we tend to get in the way a little bit too much sometimes. And we become like a little obstructionist in their goals in getting things accomplished.
Well, it was us I was talking about. I have hope for them. I am concerned about those who are being adversely affected by what we call, you and I like to call, the gatekeepers, those who are supporting Black people, who are supporting and reinforcing white supremacy. Those young people I'm discouraged by, unless they can be encouraged and impacted by the young people that you and I both see as hopeful. And many of them are out there protesting. They are, I mean, like, I don't know. I like to follow whatever I can with young people. Nan has this youth huddle. They are learning. They're teaching these young people everything. And again, I say, and I'm not making it. So look, while people want to make apologies for people who harm us, I don't see any physical harm being done to our community by Reverend Allen. So therefore, I will do what I see those who reinforce white supremacy doing. Nan is taking time to raise up these young activists, and they're training them across the board. Their huddle is usually tonight, I think. So we're in conflict tonight, but I usually try to jump in there to see what they're teaching these young people. So that's going on all over the place, all over the place. And that encourages me. And so when you talk about education, Tony, I'm encouraged that we should do something to, we should have like a 6 to 8 week program of education around whatever, get young people involved. We did this thing yesterday, and we had to get checked by this former detective, who was like, this is all well and fine, but where are the young people? They were there, but none of them we hadn't invited any of them on the stage. So when we marched from one part of where we were to the other part, I apologize to the kids. And see, that's another thing we don't do. We don't apologize to our young people for the things that we've done to harm them or to make them feel small. So I apologize to them for not allowing them to speak. And then they got over there. When we got over there, there were like 4 who wanted to speak, right? 3 or 4 who wanted to speak. And when they opened their mouths, you're talking about hope, encouragement. I was by all of
Right.
them,
But and that's great. But unfortunately, what we encounter a lot is that we're not providing them those spaces, these young people, and young people on the ground, especially. I mean, I get it. I know there's the organizing community with the National Action Networks and the other organizations that kind of coexist and, interconnect with each other. But it still represents a separation to a certain extent to the young people who are on the ground, which is why you always see, certain friction happening. And I get it. Some people have more of a profile than others. Mm-hmm. But I think what is necessary is reaching out. I think there just needs to be far more engagement with the young people, especially in the community, and putting them in the forefront to share the stage.
Absolutely.
Because all we see on TV, at press conferences and all this is the same old faces. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
I know.
And if we see people that might be, the younger activist community, whatever, they're probably way in the background, away from the mic. We can't complain about young people not getting involved how we want them to, when we're trying to dictate the terms on how they can get involved.
Yeah. One of the young people who spoke yesterday, right? And I think I posted his speech. It was short, but before and listen to this. Before he spoke, he said, this is what I'm going to say. I think it needs, I was like, of course, say that. Because what I try to do with young people when I do come into contact with them and they listen to me is let them know that short of them harming someone, I'm right there for you. They don't need to speak the way I speak. They don't even need to walk behind me. They don't need to walk the same footsteps. They need to be authentically themselves. It's not enough of us giving them that opportunity, passing the mic to them. And that is what I believe we need to create more of. And I think that's what you're saying, Tony. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, they have value and they need to be heard.
Yeah. As we wind down to an hour and a half. And so listen, as we head towards an hour and a half, I wanted to talk about Kristen Clark. I don't know if most people have been following, because there's a lot of stuff happening out there. Kristen Clark has been nominated by President Biden to be the what is it? The Deputy Attorney General. What is the title? Deputy Attorney General for Civil Rights.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Actually, I'm behind on that.
Okay. Well, Kristen Clark. She's been, but you've been doing the trial, so we all have a role to play to catch each other up. But anyway, I brought it up because you were talking about superhuman and stuff like that. So when she was in law school, she wrote a rebuttal to the bell curve whole crap racist theory. Do you know one of the congressmen or senators last week asked her, oh, was it? I don't want to get him wrong. I don't want to get him wrong. There's so many of those races there. So, I mean, I probably could pull any name out of the hat and it'd be the right one. But he asked her about her paper. Now, the paper that she wrote and was published in a law review at her school. And
Right.
at the beginning of it, it noted that this is satirical. Because
Oh, right.
basically, based on the bell curve basically says that we're inferior. So what we're the way our bodies are, the way our intelligence is not superior to whites, I guess. So her thing was, I guess if you listen to this theory and believe it, blacks are superior, so she presented that in a satirical way. I
Right.
don't disagree with it, personally, because listen, this is how I feel. If you do all that you've done to us, if you do what's been done to black people historically, you
Right.
must really know that we are superior in many ways to you. I mean, these are people, and I'm not, look, you know, these are people who have primarily stolen everything that they've gotten, you know, or
That's
killed to
true.
get what they've gotten. So every Native Americans, they killed them off with some, smallpox laced blankets and stuff. The stories just go on and on. So maybe they do think what we already know, that our strength. That's why I always say, and I know I sound like a broken record, it was never equality we should have been fighting for. We should have always been fighting for
Equity.
equity.
Yeah.
And because that's what they're not going to give up. They're not going to they're not going to stop to give us an opportunity to catch up, because they know that we're far past them. Because what? They have pillaged all their lives. That's a part of their DNA, you know. And I don't care who doesn't agree with me. That's why I'm doing this right here, and I make no bones about it. It's the truth.
Right.
It's the truth. But I brought her up to say these are the type of tactics that they're using to say, oh no, she cannot be the civil rights attorney, the attorney over
Oh,
civil
I
rights.
get it.
When Trump closed down the whole civil rights division when he first got in, and Biden is reopening it, why do they care about civil rights? They block everybody's rights, if they're not white Anglo-Saxon. What do they care who really runs that division? Think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
really, it's and so look, this is a free platform, and whoever doesn't like it, put in the comments. It's fine with me. It's fine. I'm just telling you how my position on it. That's my position. I'm sure you have yours. And for those of you who want to continue to reinforce white supremacy in your own way, do that on yours. And I'm going to do what I'm going to do to dismantle it at every turn over here. Tony?
That's right. That's right. We have a responsibility to do that. We got to get on code, and then we talk about it all the time.
All the time. And it feels like the code keeps changing.
Well, I don't know. We're allowing people to change it. I don't know. Maybe some of us just have to serve as the example. I don't know, but we're, like I always say, we're in a state of emergency. We're dropping off like flies right now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. I just hope we can finally get on one page, but I don't want us to delude ourselves into thinking that small crumbs and placebos are actual justice. So, even if we get, a guilty verdict, that's wonderful and that's cause for celebration, I guess, but there's still a lot more work to do, a whole lot more work to do.
So when you say you don't want us to, do you mean like if there is a conviction, we
If
should
there's
not
a
become so
conviction,
mm-hmm.
I'm saying, if there's a conviction, that's a wonderful thing, but we have to use that as a stepping stone to the next stage, because we have a habit of when we get happy when we get a small instance of so-called justice, and then we get complacent, like, oh, all right, we're good now. Like, nah, like it's the symbolism effect, I think.
Symbolism.
Right. Like, so I don't get caught up in symbolic victories, and not to call it a symbolic victory if he, if Chauvin is found guilty, it's necessary. But I want us to understand that that's not where it ends. Not even close. That's not where it ends.
But if there's a conviction, Tony,
Mm-hmm.
do you think it's one that we can expect in other cases similar to it?
No, not necessarily. No, because
So the work begins anew.
yes, Eric Garner was basically killed under the same circumstances. Basically,
Yeah.
Nobody wasn't even charged criminally. So you get what I'm saying? I think it makes sense that the system is starting to see that things are starting to boil over, because what happened with George Floyd, it kicked off a historical event and massive protests that you probably have never seen before.
Right.
I mean, this is all over the world. So this may very well be the system giving a little just to kind of maintain where it is. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm just saying that public pressure is a real thing. And if you have the entire world looking at you, you get what I'm saying? But what happens when the whole world is not looking at you? And it's another case similar to George Floyd isn't the only person that has gone through this. So what about all the other George Floyds, the other Breonna Taylors, the other Eric Garners? I mean, this happened to be the one that was in the spotlight. But does that mean now that we're going to be getting justice from now on after this? No. So I don't think that we should ease up off the pedal, not even in the slightest. And I think sometimes when we get these victories, our electeds tend to look at it like, whew, all right, things are calm now. Things will go back to normal. Nope. Don't let up. Go harder. That's what I always say. Go harder.
So if we decouple ourselves from what the electeds do, and because they have the bully pulpit, they have the platform, this is my suggestion. Even if there's a conviction, I still believe that there should be a day of solidarity to remove our dollars from the economy.
A day?
It could be longer. It could be longer, but I know how we like to shop. We like to spend. I'm saying that will.
I think Black people need to do it for much longer. I think Black people just need to start putting their dollars back into their community more so. Like now, start now. We don't have to wait for it. Let's do it now.
I agree. I think it's hard to convince us of these things. It's usually something that triggers that type of economic withdrawal. And I think we have to stop doing that as well. We have to be very deliberate to send the message that, okay, there's a conviction, but guess what? Look at what we had to go through. Look at what his family went through. He'll never come back again. He is not coming back. So we should not get caught up in the over celebration of a potential conviction. We should have some type of an economic boycott. And we did not do that. I don't remember doing that.
You know what? I think there have been a series of triggers. See, people, for the last few years, there have been a lot of incidents to hit the spotlight, like a lot of cases of overt anti-Blackness. And I think Black people are just pretty much starting to get fed up. And I think we already are on that road, actually, to putting our money in Black businesses. And so I don't want to boycott. Yes, great. I always support that. Right. But I think just move your money to your own community. Then it doesn't even have to be called a boycott. They're not getting our money, period, because we choose to invest in our community. And I think that's happening, especially as it pertains to, let's say, the Asian American community, like certain communities that set up their businesses in our neighborhoods, right? They've been hemorrhaging money and it's not just the pandemic. They've been hemorrhaging money for the past few years, and it's been a gradual process of Black people. Remember, there's a lot of new Black business owners out there. We're seeing a lot of Black entrepreneurship. We're seeing a lot less spending in other areas. It's actually happening. So I'm encouraged by it. From what I see a lot more investment into Black businesses. I've been seeing that, and I've seen less outpouring of our money into other communities who don't respect us. So, let's expedite it a little more, but
No, I see it. It's just it's in pockets, and I think that something on a larger scale where the impact can be felt throughout the whole nation would reverb.
I agree. I agree. But how many times do we try to do that? Like, do we always try to do these let's boycott, and it's like nobody. You get what I'm saying?
I do.
So in the meantime, I encourage people to continue to divert your money into your own community, because eventually, listen, the more people that kind of move from there and come over here, we're building up. We're building our infrastructure. We're building our community. We're building our economic profile. So, that's what I want to see. I just want Black people to not only act based in anger, or I don't want us to only react. Right. I want us to be more proactive in what we're doing, so that the reaction, won't always be so much necessary. Because when we're proactive in investing in our own community, we're going to see a lot less predatory behavior or hostile behavior towards us. So
and
stop giving them our money.
And I agree with you. And Juanita's saying invest in the young people. Absolutely, invest in our young people.
Yes.
Some of them have really, really great ideas about business.
Brilliant.
They are brilliant. And what they're learning in school is not enough to propel them into the liberation of their minds that they deserve, that we deserve, right. But we got it later, right? And so we just have to have an education structure to re-educate our young people and ourselves, I believe.
And who should set that up? Us.
We should. That's right. Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
Right.
But I cannot say I have an expertise in all areas, and that's why we have to learn how to work together.
That's right.
And also do it without having an agenda, distrust, and having an agenda, because that's the distrust question, right? What is your angle? I just want to see our people come up, right?
Right.
And if we can all just come in and just start planning from our seat of expertise to the point where we have something that's so spectacular that the children will just come. And you can't always charge parents for this stuff. You can't always charge them, but I believe in always charging at least 50 cents or $1, because it's hard to get people to invest their time. When I say charge, you can't always charge. I mean, like thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars. We have to be able to transfer this information that we came across freely by doing our own research to them. We'll get paid on the back end if that is something that is necessary. I don't think that is necessary for us to share and transfer information. I think there just has to be a beginning point where we all agree, whoever the we is, everybody out there, where we all agree we want to do this to make our community stronger and better without reliance upon the system that has never been set up for us.
And that's why it can be discouraging sometimes to see certain people in our community who they achieve a certain status or position of influence, and they rely too much upon the system to finance their success. Because whenever you're beholden to the system financially, you kind of can't really speak right. You got a leash on you to a certain extent. So that's why I always speak in terms of independence of Black people. We have to speak in terms of doing things for ourselves, controlling our own income. And because once you're detached from that system, as much as you can be, you experience a higher level of freedom. See, I can say whatever I want to say. You know what I'm saying? I don't work for anybody. I work for myself. You know what I'm saying? And there really is no sense of freedom like being able to use your voice the way you want to use it without fear of someone coming in and saying, well, I'm taking your money away from you or your livelihood away from you. You know, that there's a certain freedom in that. So if we make it one of our goals to achieve some sort of economic independence, you will be so amazed at how that will impact our position in this country. You know what I'm saying? And the sense of self-worth that we have within ourselves that we will hence transfer to our children. So I teach my children about, you know, financial literacy, about, you know, building, setting up businesses. You know, man, listen, I'm not playing. So that's what I want to see for Black people. I want to see us free. I want to see you free to use your voice. I want to see you free to participate in this system if you want to, or if you don't want to, that's fine too. I want you to be able to grow your own food, feed yourself, and feed your community, educate your community without the assistance of anybody else. That's independence. And guess what? It can be done because other communities do it themselves.
Absolutely. And let me share what Flora said. Hi, Flora. Very informative. We really need to step up. Boycotting, stop spending, investing, and networking are good ideas. Yes, she's a nurse. She's a whole nurse. And you were saying how you changed your diet. She's always on me, get to walking. And because of her, I have started walking, right?
Right.
That right there alone, our physical health is so important for all the other stuff you just said. And my 17-year-old, and this was not like a deep conversation that we were having. She just said, I want to have my own business. I don't want to work for anyone else. And you know why she said that, Tony? She said, because I don't want to have anyone else be able to tell me whether or not I can eat.
Come on now.
That's what my baby said. That's what my baby said. Yeah.
Oh,
and
Lord.
Look, I'm her whole mama, and I had not thought about working for other people means that they're in control of whether or not you
can eat. She's saying literally the same thing that I've been saying for years. That's my argument.
Yeah, man.
Listen, I haven't worked for anyone since 1996 because
that's 25 years.
How long has that been? Yeah, it's been right. And I decided, and that was when I got fired, and I decided that's the last time I'm going to get fired. That's the last time someone else is going to tell me how and when and if I can eat and feed myself. Wow. So she's on point. That's right. And I never look back. And that's why, even though college is a wonderful thing, I encourage my young people, if you don't feel college is for you, there are so many other options. You know, you can get a trade. You know, once you have a skill, or you have some trade, some skill with your hands, you'll never go hungry.
I love it. I love it. And I think we need to push that more. There are so many jobs that are going lacking because we're telling everybody, go to college. But there are trades that you can learn within a few months and then become, you know, have a great living for yourself.
More money than many college graduates.
Yeah, make more money than many college graduates and not have the debt that college graduates
not
have.
Be saddled with the debt.
Which means that you can purchase land, you can purchase a home earlier than those who are trying to pay off the student loans. You know, it's just something that we need to start amplifying a little bit more. But Tony, I've been so happy having this conversation with you. So let's tell the audience that we're planning to be available to go live when we hear the verdict, when we all hear the verdict. And we don't know how long. I saw somebody post today and I reposted it. They tweeted that I hope the jury takes all of 9 minutes and 29 seconds to come back with a verdict of guilty. But clearly they've settled in for the night. They're having their meal. And so they have not done that. But we are going, Tony and I, we are planning to be available, and I believe Pastor Davis might be able to join us at some point during the week if it doesn't come quickly. What do you think? Let me just ask you about odds, Tony, and I don't know how you feel about this. But
I was going to say, I think if the verdict comes back fairly quickly, it's very likely that it's guilty. I think the faster the verdict comes back, the more likely he will be found guilty on all charges. And if there's anything they don't know, I don't see how he won't be found guilty on all charges. But if they kind of let him off from one, it would be the second-degree murder. But
what is the highest charge? Is the second-degree murder the highest charge?
Murder, yeah. Yeah.
I don't even see how. When this man with his hands in his pockets, boy. Ugh.
But they proved the standard because all they had to do, I think, was prove like third-degree assault that led to the death. So like their standard for a second-degree murder charge is different than in some other states. So I think they definitely established beyond a reasonable doubt. Remember, it's reasonable doubt, not beyond all doubt, but beyond a reasonable doubt that he murdered that man. And I think they did a great job of proving that any doubt that was raised by the defense was completely unreasonable. Okay. If that makes sense.
Yep. I don't know any. I mean, I think that if he was scoring any points from what I heard recapped, he messed up when he introduced the carbon monoxide as a
defense attorney.
The defense. If the jurors were giving him his defense any points, they messed up when he introduced that nonsense. What do you think?
Yeah, that and a lot of other things. It was a lot. Listen, the entire premise of the defense's case was, what if? That's basically the entire case, because obviously they're going for reasonable doubt. And, you know, when you're a lawyer, you got to have a bit of con man in you, especially if you're a trial lawyer, because you're dealing with evidence, right? But your job is to take that evidence and manipulate it in a way to make it subject to a certain interpretation. That's your playground, subject to interpretation, which is what opens the door for acquittals. You know, that reasonable doubt thing. But I don't think I've ever seen a defense attorney so inept at doing that. So
he wasn't really working with a whole lot, was he?
No, but even in his closing arguments, this guy was playing video evidence that was actually hurting the defendant.
Yes, was that you who posted that this man is actually playing George Floyd calling out for his mom? Was that you or someone else?
Playing George Floyd. Listen, I at one point, like, I've been questioning like the authenticity of this defense attorney. Like, I have questioned more than once, like said to myself, is this guy actually
trying to get a conviction?
Is he trying to get a conviction? Yeah. And that's a legitimate concern. I don't know. Are they trying to go with, you know, like getting a mistrial, you know, based on, you know, like I don't even know, on inadequate counsel maybe, or are they going to try to get an appeal? Because I don't even know. But you already know they've been drawing up their appeal docs throughout that entire trial. So don't expect. So we should all expect an appeal, you know, in the case that there's a guilty verdict. And I do expect a guilty verdict on at least 2 of the charges.
And then we talk about the length of sentencing.
The sentencing is another thing,
which is also a possible trigger for a lot of outrage in the nation.
Yeah, because the judge can intervene, if I'm not mistaken, on the sentencing. So this is going to be very interesting to watch.
You mentioned the slave patrols earlier, so I wanted to put that up there for anyone who may rewatch it and desires to learn a little bit more about how law enforcement became a thing in this country and out of which it grew from growing out of slavery. Tony, there was one more thing. And we're about to shut it down, everybody. But I did want to ask you, Tony, about Auntie Max's comments this morning.
Okay, I didn't personally hear it, but I did hear it. I did hear it. I just didn't hear the judge's response to it.
Oh, he was very upset. He was very upset.
Yeah, well, I know Fox News, they went crazy with it, saying that she was basically calling for violence and if they don't get the verdict that, if we don't get the verdict that we want, hit the streets. So they're basically saying that you're trying to intimidate them into delivering a certain verdict. And that's just not how the justice system works. That's really like you're reaching at straws now,
Yeah.
but the judge did give his opinion on that today.
Yeah.
And I thought that was rather inappropriate.
Yeah, and I did too. And you're talking about the point that he made that it could be grounds for an appeal. Her statement,
mistrial.
well, not the mistrial. He denied the mistrial. He denied the mistrial, right?
He said that it could be like grounds for an appeal, and then he gave his opinion on. I guess Congress people would stay out of this or something like that. And I was just like, ooh,
Well, I mean, he can say that for me, but I'm just saying I'm okay. I don't think those jurors are going to be impressed.
Were the jurors
other
present when he said that?
I believe they were. He hadn't given them their instructions yet. It was still. I don't think so. Somebody.
Okay, well, I logged out while he was still giving instructions, and I didn't hear him say that.
Yeah, the part that I took exception to was him putting in the ethers that is it could be possible grounds for an acquittal. He's not supposed to give legal advice to the defense. That's what I saw that as,
Yeah, that's true. See, I just wish I heard it. I don't know if it was just said kind of casually after he already. Oh, but he said appeal after he denied the mistrial.
After he denied the mistrial.
Oh, then that's inappropriate. But I need to watch that.
Yeah, that's what I found inappropriate. Look, Auntie Mac, she's like 80 plus years old. She don't care. She's, I don't know that I think it is dangerous for someone of her stature to say things.
To weigh in that way where it can incite something. And I'm gonna be real. Because didn't they just impeach Donald Trump and all of that based on him? I mean, he kind of said the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And look, the stakes are much higher for people who might listen to her because they're Black like her, and it can't end well. So I would rather her be more responsible. I understand she's 80 plus and she's been around these bushes for a long time, but my primary concern is that Black kids or young people don't end up worse than they already are.
Don't interpret those words the same way that young white males do.
That's
and
true.
White people do.
That's true. That's true. It's not a marching order. They don't see it
because when Black people say we need to take it to the streets, then Black people will go protest.
Yeah.
If you tell a gang of white people we need to take it to the streets, they're running up in the Capitol and bringing guns and attacking people and smashing the place up. So
heck, after basketball games, after football games, they tearing up people's cars. They're stomping on people's cars, on a win. So you see how they are. That's not us.
Question our nature, our quote unquote violent nature. But I guess that's a conversation for another time. It's like
it's one we can have, but yeah,
we got to stop scapegoating the behavior and the end results of white violence on Black people.
Yeah,
that's just scapegoating
and
just deflecting from the truth.
It is
the truth.
It is, and I appreciate this conversation with you because you're able to bring a clarity that I believe so many people really need to hear. I'm always this fireball in social media, but you brought that balance tonight because I really came in with a heavy heart, and it's too many people out here having authority who are working against the community, and the community is not wise enough to see it. And you zeroed in on what we really need to do.
And we need to reclaim our authority, and that starts with educating.
That's right.
Each other, not just the young people, but educating each other. And I know sometimes people are averse to new information. They don't want to hear it that way. That's just this culture we live in today where everyone thinks they know everything. But, hey, listen, if you got to, tone it down or stroke the ego a little bit in some cases just to get people to hear you, just take one for the team. You gotta educate people. And I know
Yeah.
sometimes people, they've programmed themselves to refuse any new information that doesn't align with their beliefs. But just keep at it and do it in love and empathy, and you will achieve some sort of positive result. Okay. So we tend to be a little, we I guess, condemning in the way that we engage with each other, arrogant,
Mm-hmm.
and dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
We can, let's just try to change the way, let's modify the way that we communicate with each other in order to achieve the result that we would like to see.
Absolutely.
It's
I love
okay.
it. I love it. Thank you, Tony. Hope to, hope to see you on here again soon, because I agree with you. The less time that they take deliberating, the
The
more
more
likely
likely.
it is that there might be
Okay.
a conviction. A
Yep.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. See you again soon. Tony Lindsay, the founder and host of the Community Town Hall, and I'm Deborah Jenkins, your host for Black Talk Platform. God bless you all, and thank you for being here with us. I'll
Thank
see you in the
you.
green room, Tony.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.